Welcome to part 4, guys. The last video I was going away and I realized just as I was editing it that the audio had completely not been picked up. I'm not sure why. My mic was plugged in, everything usually works, so I didn't test it, but it didn't work. So I'm just going to quickly cover what we did previously. So as you can see, we did the sign up view, the login view, and we were able to access some user information, and it probably helps a bit if we just go over explaining it briefly, because I don't want to redo the previous video. You should still be able to follow it and get everything to work. If you have any questions, just feel free to ask them. So if we start with the order in which this list is being crossed off, I need to see the files, I think. Let's see, sign up view. I could have searched for it. All we really did here was create a simple form which I copied and pasted from somewhere else. We're using which is sort of the same as using the von directive, which looks like this. I explained that in the previous video, but there's no audio, and then it's really just a simple form. And let me get it up actually, so we can see it looks like this if you followed everything. And then down here in our methods, we've got a submit form which is triggered every time we hit the submit button, and all we're doing is sending the username and the password in a dictionary called form data via Axios, and this is just going to the endpoint, and this is exactly the same as the basic token authentication video I did. And we just submit the form data, then we wait for the response, and we push to home. So we actually console log the push, which we can see when we sign up. You would have seen that in the console of the browser, and then we just went to the home page, which we're using router.push, and that would take us to the home page. This is the path. So that's the sign up view. The login view was slightly more complicated. We had the same form essentially, we changed a few things. Something I wanted to say is we were using username and password because to sign in and to log in or register you need a username and password, but we're using the email for the sign in, and we can send the email as well if we want to, but we don't need to. So here we're just clearing everything. We're clearing the access token, we're clearing our headers, and we're getting our form data. When we're logging in, we're using our username and our password, and now we're actually going to the endpoint, which is JWT/create, and that creates the token for us. And at that point, that's when we want to set the token and put it in our local storage and stuff. Now we're going to be doing more on that this video, so I'll be talking about that a bit. So const access, here we're just getting the access token from the response. I can actually show you that right now. Let's see if we go into login view, something@gmail.com, and then let's get my password up. So we can see that when we logged in. So this is a previous one I did, I think. And then on the home view, we got a 200. What are we looking for? Yeah, we're console.logging the response, which we have here, and then we're just getting a bunch of our data essentially. So we've got data, and okay, so this is actually okay. So we've got two. The first one that we get sent is the data, and then the second one is something I'll show you in just a moment, which is on our home page, of course. So the first response we got was our data, and that data had an access token and a refresh token, and we just took the access token and assigned it to access. Then we set the token, the access token, in our store, which we defined in here. Set access, state.access, which is this state here, is equal to the new access token, which we've just passed through. Then we're actually setting our new headers with JWT plus the access token. Now it's the access token that of course gives us access to data about ourselves, or anything that we're allowed to access. and then local storage.setItem access token. So the local storage, so there's different ways we can do this. I think for now, so we basically have two options. Option one is we simplify it massively and we just have our access token in the local storage, right? And that token will be updated every whatever the window is. Right now our token actually expires after a minute, which we can probably see here. So now we're getting a 401 unauthorized because it's been a minute. So we can just use local storage, and what we could have is a function which just updates every 59 seconds in this case, or 50, whatever we want, and it gives us a new access token that we then are allowed to use to access things. And the alternative way of doing things is to store the refresh token. The refresh token is much longer, usually 24 hours or so by default, I think. And we can essentially, every time we try and access something, what we would do is we would use our refresh token to get an access token, use that access token to get our data. So that would kind of be the flow. I think what I might do for now is just stick with the access token in local storage, because maybe I'm missing something, but to me it doesn't seem that much more insecure than using a refresh token. We might want to use the refresh token. Maybe I'll go through that too. But then the same again, we're pushing to our home view once we've logged in. And actually that reminds me, when we sign up, we really want to go into our login view, don't we? So sign up, and we want to go to login. That's really where we want to be. So we sign up, we go to our login view, we log in, we go to our home view. Now the last thing to really go over is the home view. And I'm going to make this one video, I think, so I'll upload this now and then we'll get started with the next video, just so it's a recap for everyone. Then we'll just make, we probably would have seen this request in the documentation. We can essentially get our own user data. We can get information about us using JWT. I think you'd have to check the docs. So this is the endpoint, and we can only get access to this if we're authorized. So this is how we were testing that we were authorized, and of course we're only authorized for a minute to view that data, and we can change that, and then we're just collecting this .user data, and we're getting response.data.user name, and that's what we're putting here. And remember, our username was our email, which is why the email address showed up before here. So that's really everything that we've done. And I think I will stop the video here because the audio didn't work. So this video is really going to be for those people who just want an explanation of what we did and what we can do. So the two options are, we keep our token in local storage, so our access token, which we need to actually access things, or we can put the refresh token in our local storage, and the access token will have to be sort of made as and when we need access to things, which could be more complicated, because if we're not putting the access token in local storage, then essentially what happens is if you refresh the page or navigate away, then we're not going to have access to that token, which will be a bit of a pain. So we'd kind of have to, every time we refresh the page, we would have to go and get a new access token to put in our local memory, which we would then use to make the request. So that's how we would do it. I might just do with the access token, because it's really not, it's just different. It's not necessarily more complicated, it's just more steps. With the refresh token, remember, all you're doing is, all we would basically be changing is, let's see, rather than getting our access token in local storage, we would have our refresh token in local storage, and our access token would actually just be a local variable, but we would have to continuously get that token every 15 minutes or whatever we wanted by sending a refresh token, which we do have in local storage. So either way, you need to have something in local storage, otherwise your app isn't going to work, because as soon as a user navigates away, they'll be logged out, which is really annoying. So that's where I'm at. So the next video will come out, and then I will do part 5, I guess.